Looks good now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, in a few moments we're going to begin the memorial service. So I'd ask those of you with cell phones if you just kindly turn them off or turn them down now. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Before I get started on my speech, I just wanted to tell some funny stories so we can all do a little smiling and a little laughing to get started. So last night we were all at Mom and Dad's house sitting around the table talking about the moment that Dad passed away. So though Mom and I were all by his side for the whole day, and Mom's like, he's gone, he took his last breath, and that was when we had the ugly cry. We're like, oh! We all put our heads down on Dad, and then he goes, ah! We're like, he's alive! And then Mom goes, damn, Bob, you made me cry for nothing. And then he took one more breath. And then it was a couple hours that Dad got to lay there until he was taken away. And we made a funny joke that wouldn't it be great if we tied Dad to us like we could have Bernie's and ride around Milford, yo! One last wave and a beer to everybody. We just had to make the most and have lots of laughs. So thank you all for being here with us today for Bob's celebration of life. With the sadness we all feel, there's also so much greatness to acknowledge and be thankful for. We will have 3 speeches today and then concluding remarks. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Bean, aka Janelle, Bob's amazing daughter. I want to start by saying there will never be another Bob Wilkins in this world ever. He was one of a kind. He truly was the man, the myth, the legend. I knew how much impact he left on so many people, but I don't think I truly realized the magnitude of the legacy that he created. I've read every comment and message on social media, and the influx of messages and calls to my family have truly painted the impact that my dad made. I feel so proud to be his daughter, and so proud of the life that he created. I want to share a few messages that stood out to me. Wes Cromer messaged me and said, I know he was your hero. And you can always tell when a girl has a really cool dad. And wow, he was 100% right. Not only was he my hero, he was the hero to so many people. After I wrote this speech, Judd Mills messaged me and said, there's no better memory of him being a superhero to me as a kid, and later in life being able to drink beer and hang out with him. I had my childhood superhero become my friend. I just cried reading that, knowing my speech was spot on. Bo and I literally have the coolest dad. Imagine growing up with your dad being the most winning modified driver and being loved by a huge fan base. Imagine watching your house fill up with lots of trophies. I think that's why Bo and I have allergies. Being subjected to the dust accumulation on 1,000.
Hey, wait a minute. I cleaned them.
Imagine being built a '69 Chevelle for your first car. Imagine watching your dad catch bass after bass after bass. Imagine your dad being so mechanically inclined that you can just call him and he has all the answers for everything. Imagine riding to school with your dad every morning rocking out to CCR. Imagine your dad loving crabs so much that he instilled crab eating as a way of life. Imagine your dad being so carefree and truly just living out his dreams, which was to never do anything he didn't want to do. Sorry, Mom. We all joke that Dad could build a carburetor, but he couldn't cut the grass. Imagine watching your dad be so passionate and perfecting his craft every single day. Imagine having a dad that loved cooking than asking how his meat tastes 100 times. Imagine having a dad as a great storyteller. Imagine just having the coolest, most badass dad. Bo and I are so lucky. Try not. Another comment that stood out to me was someone saying, the sad part is all of his knowledge will go with him. And another comment stating, Such a great loss of knowledge. Those hit really deep, and I'm sure many of us have thought about that too. But what I can say is it's not gone. He's been sharing it for 68 years. All of his knowledge is embedded in all of us here. And it's our jobs to continue to share what we've been taught, which correlates with the next comment from Mike that stated, "I was privileged enough to spend time with Bobby Wilkins. He got my fabrication skills to another level, sitting down and talking about being in the seat. He was a mentor beyond belief. He got my head wrapped around running a race car." Those amazing comments are exactly how Dad's knowledge unknowingly has been embedded in all of us. One of Dad's best qualities was he encouraged us to be ourselves and follow our dreams. For example, though, if you want to shave half your head, go for it. He was involved in all of our sports, activities, hobbies, passions, and if something seemed like an impossible ask, he would find a way and support. The love my mom and Dad had for each other was truly so special. The day we took Dad to the ER to then learn of Dad's brain tumor, Mom never left his side in this 15-month journey. Her lifestyle significantly changed, knowing she had to do whatever it takes to allow Dad to thrive in this last part of life with his terminal cancer diagnosis. I'm so proud of how she stepped up and took the bull by the horns and just figured it out. She had endless visits to Penn with Dad. She was his 24/7 care nurse. She kept him fed, socialized, clean, looking handsome, and many, many more roles. When Dad passed away, he had a scab on his cheek from when Mom cut him shaving. So Mom, Dad's flying high with the fruits of your labor. Along with my mom, Bo was additionally pivotal with helping with Dad, and I must say, I'm so proud of you for also doing what it takes while watching your best friend deteriorate. Towards the end, it took Bo, me when I could help, and Mom to all get his diaper changed and ready for bed. I must say, Bo and I had to hear all the stories about Dad's cute butt, her favorite body part of his, and lots of wild stories I've already blocked from my memory. What the three of us learned through this 15-month journey is that we couldn't change the outcome or the diagnosis, but we could change our mindset and enjoy the ride. We learned to laugh at Dad's ridiculous behaviors and comments, accept and laugh as newfound love for rummaging Mom's jewelry box, and watching her wear her rings and jewelry all around the house. We truly just made the most of the cards we were dealt. I feel confident everyone here will allow my dad's legacy to live on forever. So I have two asks of everybody here. The first ask is to carry on your life the Bob way, which is to love hard, be a great person, encourage people, pass on your knowledge, be passionate, have fun, and most importantly, win at whatever you do. My second ask is to think about how you will leave this earth, carrying on your own legacy too. Life is too short, so my dad has inspired me to make the most of the cards we were dealt and make an impact. So I challenge everyone here to accept every day as a new day, and a new day to make the impact my dad has made on all of us to other people. Oh, and I have one more ask. Understand how to read a tape measure. When I would help Dad measure something, he'd go, "Bean, what's the length?" And I'd be like, "Dad, it's 5 and 1, 2, 3 lines." And he would immediately huff and puff, "Janelle, that's 5 and 3/16." Dad left us with dignity, a legacy, and sweetness, all the way to the end. So I'll end with this. We all know Ricky Bobby stole this from Bobby Wilkins. If you're not first, you're last. We love you, Dad.
Oh, that's beautiful.
right, so for our next speaker, we thought it would be very appropriate that we know Dad is the #1 driver, so we thought we would bring the #2 driver. Kinda kidding. I would like to welcome Ricky Elliott, and he is a longtime competitor of Dad's and a great friend.
Oh.
You're not #2, you're 1 in our heart.
You're one, yeah.
Well, I want to tell everybody that Bob was probably one of the most inspirational people in my life. When I first moved into the big car racing, I've been racing my whole life since I was 10, and I started my career basically working for Snooki Vent back there in the back, which Snooki worked with Bob and myself and probably every other racer there is in the state of Delaware and New Jersey and Pennsylvania. The first time Bob ever encountered Bob was at Snooki's. I was working for him in 1987 and 88, and Bob would come in and pick up parts, but he really never had that much to say to me because I was just a parts guy and the guy that was on the track racing with him. But back in 88, we had a really good year, and I was moving forward. Bob was moving forward. He was in Banks's car. And I remember it like yesterday. The season ended. We were starting 1989, started the season. Snooki calls me, says, Rick, Bob Wilkins is on the phone. He wants to talk to you. And I'm like, holy shit. Did I get into him the night before? No. Well, at that time, I was getting ready to get my first big break. And Bob was going to bring he was going to help me. I was getting ready to leave the team that I was with and start driving for Blue Hen, Eugene Mills' team, 1989. And he just called me to prepare me for what was getting ready to happen to me as going from a part-time racer to a full-time racer. So he told me some things to prepare myself for it. I'll keep them to myself. And to keep digging. So that was really the first time that we had ever had conversation directly, and it was on a phone call. So it was memorable. The second time we really got together good was Bob had took some time off from racing. When he took the time off from racing, his two cousins, James and Don, actually came to work for me the following year when I moved to D&D Dismantling. So that's basically what kept the families together, what kept us talking amongst ourselves. I knew a lot about Bob, more than most people did, because I would get it from James and Don. Well, Bob wouldn't do it like that. Okay, well, let's try it a different way. So it's funny and full fold. When I was going to retire in 2018, Bob had found out, and he was working over the Hot Rod Garage, and I think Bo was back home finally from working in the NASCAR deal with him. He would stop by Max Robo shows. Max had bought a car, and I was working on it. Well, Bob pulls in. I don't know if he came in for the beer or for the lecture, but they were both good. So, what happens is Bob comes to me and he said, Rick, Max tells me you're going to retire. I said, yeah. He said, don't retire. I said, Bob, I've had enough. He said, if I ever had a regret, I wish I'd have raced 2 more years than what I did. I said, well, you had some time off and I didn't. I went 32 years straight and I'm going to retire. He said, well, I sure hope you don't regret it. But the moral of the story is he was the first guy to give me advice when I was a kid. And then he also was trying to give me some advice at the end of my career as an adult. That says a lot about a guy, because we could have had 1,000 conversations about races we've had, but we never once had a crossword. We got together with each other at times, sometimes we didn't, but he was a man's man. And that's the most respect I have. He's probably the guy I respect the most of anybody I ever raced with. My condolences go to Kim, Bo, Janelle. You got a great father.
Thank you, Rick.
And we're all going to miss him.
Thank you.
our last speaker, a quick funny story. Last night, my family, a couple of different pieces of the family were at the hotel checking in. They already knew the story. My cousin's lovely boyfriend, I don't know, did they meet before?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They had met, but it's been a long time. So anyways, Aaron's at the counter and he turns around and my dad's brother's checking in, but he thought it was Bob. He looked at Summer and was like, oh my God, there's a ghost of Bob. So I'd like to welcome our third speaker, my dad's beloved brother, Jed Wilkins.
Yeah.
Hi, friends and family, and
Hi,
more
Jay.
friends and more friends. I'm Jay, Bob's brother. My brother was a good and a great man, a good and great person, a good and great human being. I love and loved him very much. I will miss him very much. While there are many different definitions of good and great, I'll stick with the good and great, and I hope you don't get tired of those two words. Repetition is the mother of learning. There are so many good and great things about Bob, it was hard for me to know where best to start. So in no particular order of importance, I know Bob was a good and great husband to Kim. Their married life lasted more than 47 years, and in my own personal experience with marriage, that's a good and great journey together. Their marriage was filled with love, first and foremost, and it was also filled with honesty, humor, communication, respect, intimacy, acceptance, friendship, trust, forgiveness, and responsibility. I like that. I've probably missed a few good and great qualities of successful marriage, but I trust you know what I'm trying to communicate. I just meant the responsibility because as a couple, they were around the clock serious about the very large responsibility of raising children. For those of you who know Bo and Janelle, you know they turned out to be
Amazing.
yes, and as I wrote here, good and great people.
Good and great.
And amazing.
Good and great human beings, largely because they had good and great parenting. Good and great parenting, of course, means unconditional love, being a good role model, nurturing, patience, encouraging, setting limits, and appropriate discipline. The very successful family that Bob and Kim built is also reflected in Bo and Janelle's children, Bob and Kim's grandchildren, Brimley, Lane, Grayson, Griffin, and Graham. I know they will miss their paternal grandfather very much. I know he taught them many useful things about life. One important thing that comes to mind, he taught them how to have fun. And don't forget that, keep having fun. Of course, I'd be out of my mind if I said nothing about Bob's success in motorsports. His love of racing started when he was about 6 or 7 years of age. Our dad took him around that age to see some go-kart races in Milford, and Bob was hooked for life. He raced go-karts up until he was about 16 and then switched his attention to racing cars. At that point, I think he had accumulated at least 200 trophies from go-kart racing victories. Caused me to sneeze a lot too. After the go-kart racing was over, he went from late models to modifieds to sprint cars and back again to modifieds. As most of you know, he was very successful in that world. If memory serves me correctly, he still has the most feature wins at what I guess you would or could call his home track. I just say Del Mar. This brings to mind my birthday gift to him when he was turning 6 or 7. He wanted a real go-kart, but Mom and Dad didn't think he was ready for the real thing at that time. So I got creative, so I thought. He wanted it really badly. So what I did is this. I found a large cardboard box that might have been big enough to actually hold a real go-kart. I wrote go-kart on the outside of the box and put inside the box a very, very small replica of a go-kart. He was not happy. I think it took him about 5 years to forgive me. In retrospect,
He never forgave you.
Still
It's
not
COVID.
fair. It's fair.
okay.
To ponder that now.
Well, I'll own up to this part of it. In retrospect, I deserved the punishment. A night lifelong. Speaking of our past together, I remember quite clearly a lot about his racing success, especially during the years I lived in Baltimore in the late 1970s. During the racing season, I would drive over to Del Mar many Saturday nights to see him race. I saw him race to victory after victory, but never saw him express anything but humility. That's humility after a win. That is one of my fondest memories of Bob. Showing humility is to me one clear indication of being a good and great human being. He taught me something about humility. And a lot of you will know I mean this when I say the following sentence. I really needed that lesson. You can laugh, it's okay. I will continue to be grateful for that gift from him for the rest of my natural life. In closing, I can tell you without equivocation and with certainty that Bob lived his best possible life. He lived his best possible life because he had the ability to accept the things he could not change, the courage to change the things that he could, and the wisdom to know the difference. Speaking of the rest of my natural life, I know I will once in a while hear inside my head the following. Hey Bobby, let's go have a catch.
So again, thank you all for your support, friendship, and love to our family and to my dad for so many years. So to conclude our service, I of course have to recite some Leonard Skinner. Get your tissues. If I leave here tomorrow, will you still remember me? For I must be traveling on now, because there's too many places I've got to see. But if I stay here with you, Kim, things just couldn't be the same. Because I'm as free as a bird now. And this bird you cannot change. Dad is a free bird. Fly high and forever be racing in our hearts. This now concludes the service.
Good job, Jane. Perfect. Will you do my
You guys can still hang out and party, but it's over.
Thank you, Natalie. That's beautiful.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude the memorial services for Mr. Wilkins. On behalf of the family, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance. You may return to your cars whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get it.